I paid a lot of money for this autograph wall to use as a filmmaking background, so I hope you guys appreciate it. Hey everyone, Tom here, and today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, Spider-Man suits. I thought I'd take some time today in this video to go over each of the cinematic Spider-Man suits made for film. For the sake of this video, we're only going to be talking about the main suits that were used for the film, so no homemade suits, nothing before the 2002 Spider-Man movie, only the main costumes used in modern cinema. So without further ado, let's get to it. Sam Raimi was brought on to direct the original Spider-Man film back in January of 2001, and he felt the responsibility to be as faithful as possible to the comics in order to bring the Spider-Man costume to life. He hired costume designer James Acheson, who would not only remain as the costume designer for Raimi's whole trilogy, but he would also go on to work on other superhero movies such as Daredevil and Man of Steel. A full spandex bodysuit with an intricate design like this had never really been introduced in cinematic history before, so James Acheson played around with different ideas to bring the costume to life. At first, the costume incorporated a separating helmet as well as leather boots. Acheson even considered incorporating more black into the suit, working with comic book artist Alex Ross on a design that would have also included black eye lenses. Sam Raimi, however, felt that the costume needed to be more of a translation from the comics rather than a real-world adaptation or even practical. Eventually, Acheson and Raimi created a comic book red and blue costume with white eye lenses, a foam latex muscle suit, and raised webbing. The suit itself was produced by a company named Studio ADI. The costume had a screen-printed pattern on it, which included brick detailing and muscle shading to enhance the muscle undersuit. Each section of the suit took 6 screen printing screens, all printed in water-based ink. The muscle suit was sculpted over a life cast of Tobey Maguire and became a main staple for the rest of the Raimi trilogy. Much like the Batman films of the 80s and 90s, the muscle suit was casted in foam latex due to its flexibility and compressibility. Contrary to popular belief, the raised webbing was also casted in silver-tinted foam latex, not urethane rubber. This was due to foam latex being more flexible and stretchier than urethane rubber. This is also why you often see the webs deteriorating over time with the production suits as they stand today, as foam latex actually dry rots over time. The webs were casted out of milled aluminum molds and were glued on by hand to the suit. A goal of the costume team was to make the suit as seamless as possible, so it was decided that the suit would mainly be one-piece construction with the mask attached to the neck. Specialty suits were made for whenever there was a scene where Peter Parker would take his mask off. This is actually a main staple for all the modern Spider-Man suits. If you look closely at any of the suits made for film, most of the time you wouldn't see a neck seam. This made the suit uncomfortable for Tobey Maguire, who was claustrophobic and didn't like being in the suit with the attached mask. Another way the costume team made the suits seamless was they made the suits very small. This was done to avoid wrinkling, and it's why the suits as they stand today look really small on a mannequin without a muscle suit. The suit in reality was about a size or two smaller than it would have been practically. One of the main takeaways that Hollywood still implements today was the undershell mask that Tobey Maguire wore with the suit. The 2002 Spider-Man film was the first to have an undershell mask design, and the purpose was to give Spider-Man's head a uniform and consistent shape. Another reason why an undershell mask was used was so that the eye lenses could magnetically attach and be removed whenever they were needed for filming. The undershell mask, or better known as a face shell in the cosplay community, was sculpted in clay and vacuum formed. The lens frames were casted in urethane, and the lenses themselves were made by Oakley. While the undershell mask was uncomfortable for Tobey Maguire, it remained a main staple used by Hollywood for all the Spider-Man films and other films where the character wears a spandex mask like Deadpool. Even though the reaction to this incarnation of the suit was well received by fans, the costume was very uncomfortable for Tobey Maguire, who often had to be sewn into the suit because of the zippers breaking. This design of the costume would remain until 2004's Spider-Man 2, where Raimi and Acheson would make further alterations to the costume to evolve it even further. The second costume design for Spider-Man 2 is very similar to the original costume, only implementing subtle differences. A key change to the development of the suit was the pattern in the costume was dye sublimated instead of screen printed. Despite the new printing process being lower quality than the screen printing process, Acheson decided on using dye sublimation as a way to save the production time and money. Subtle changes were also made to the color of the suit, being deeper and richer than the original. The webbing pattern is also slightly different. A bigger change to the suit were the front and back emblems. The front emblem underwent a redesign so that the suit would photograph better on camera, and the back emblem was also redesigned and made three-dimensional like the webbing. The webs were also now casted with the backing as a means to make producing them easier. They were also casted in tinted black foam latex with the silver painted on top as a way to create more depth. The muscle suit was also redesigned to be more segmented as a way to show more muscle definition underneath the costume. The undershell mask and the lenses were also redesigned. The undershell mask was once again sculpted and vacuum formed with the moving jaw mechanism installed for when Spider-Man talks on camera, and the lenses were now a metal silver color with shading around the edges of them. The soles of the costume were now also red. On the original suit they were black, but Sam Raimi made the decision to make the soles red to be more comic accurate. Raimi also decided to stick with the angled toe design of the suit as a nod to the comics. Overall, the production of this version of the costume would stay largely the same for Spider-Man 3, except now Raimi and Atchison were tasked with creating the symbiote black suit. At first, Sam Raimi and James Atchison experimented with an all-black bodysuit with a comic-accurate symbiote emblem, but the production felt the suit was too adult film-like, so they pivoted to a web motif like the previous costumes. The black suit has a few key differences than the traditional red and blue costume, the biggest being the redesigned emblems. The emblems now sport an angled fang look, with James Atchison saying that he wanted the emblem to look like it was gripping Tobey Maguire when worn. Another subtle change was that the eye lenses were made slightly larger than the ones on the red and blue costume, as a way to make Spider-Man look more menacing. The biggest change in terms of the construction of the costume was that the brick patterning on the suit was actually screen printed using plastisol ink. This is a technique that would later be used by the vast majority of Hollywood as a way to make spandex lycra have a different texture on camera. James Atchison and his team were nearly the first to do this technique, and it made the black suit have a wet, sort of scaly-like alien texture. The only other team to do this screen printing technique on a superhero costume before Atchison were the costuming team on Superman Returns. Sam Raimi and James Atchison really cemented the look of Spider-Man for a whole generation of fans, until Sony decided to reboot the franchise altogether. Mark Webb was brought on to direct The Amazing Spider-Man in 2010 and hired costume designer Kim Barrett to reinvent Spider-Man for the big screen. Barrett would later go on to design costumes for Aquaman and Shang-Chi. Barrett took heavy inspiration from athletic wear to create Spider-Man's new suit and worked with Jose Fernandez of Higher Ned Studios to make the costume a reality. Much like the black suit in Spider-Man 3, this new version of the costume featured a fully screen-printed design that made it resemble something produced by Under Armour or Adidas. The suit also featured custom gold sunglass lenses, which Peter Parker would narratively get his hands on in the real world. The pads of the shoes were also cut off Asics track and field shoes, adding to the realism of the suit. The narrative and production team decided to go with mechanical web shooters over the organic ones seen in Raimi's trilogy. They created the web shooters using a custom design as well as everyday wristwatch parts. The reception of this suit was mixed by fans who felt that it strayed too much away from the source material, so it would be later reimagined again in the sequel, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Mark Webb hired costume designer Deborah L. Scott to revamp the Spider-Man costume for the sequel. The costume was massively redesigned from the first film, once again working with Jose Fernandez of Higher Ned Studios to construct the costume. The eye lenses themselves were a major stepping off point for the production team, with Scott working hard to achieve the signature comic book shape. The lenses themselves are bulbous and reflective and could magnetically lock into the undershell mask like the previous incarnations of the costume. The fabrics themselves were specially designed for this film as well. The reds are a shiny tricot spandex that changes color depending on the lighting scenario. The blues are, once again, a screen-printed spandex with the brick detailing printed on with plastisol ink, which allowed the texture of the blue portions of the suit to reflect light. The webbing and emblems were high-density screen-printed onto the suit, which saved the production time, and they were more durable than the foam latex webs used on the Raimi costumes. This version of the costume also incorporates the most complex zipper system of any suit to this day. The suit itself is separated by an invisible zipper at the waist, allowing for a shirt and pants. There were also zippers in the mask, gloves, crotch, and boots, all for the comfort of Andrew Garfield, who could take breaks and go to the bathroom without having to take the whole suit off. The reception to this incarnation of the suit was super positive among fans, who felt that it was the most comic book accurate suit to this day. But the lukewarm reception of the movie itself prompted Sony to make a deal with Disney to introduce Spider-Man to the MCU with the new actor. When Tom Holland was cast as the new Spider-Man in the MCU, Captain America Civil War was already well into principal photography, and the costuming team at Marvel was tasked with creating a practical Spider-Man suit in a rushed timeframe. MCU artist Ryan Meiterding had illustrated a version of the suit that was very reminiscent of the art drawn by Steve Ditko. This version of the suit was produced by the costuming team at Marvel Studios within a very short time frame. Due to the suit being rushed, Tom Holland didn't enjoy wearing it as he felt that the suit was too big for him. Holland would later wear a mocap suit for different scenes for when the suit would later be redesigned in CG. The final suit in the film was completely CG and had been redesigned to look more in line with the other MCU costumes. The suit was the first to feature moving eye lenses that could close like the aperture on a camera lens, which was a nod to Peter Parker's job as a photographer in the comics. The suit also featured black banding, which was reminiscent of the silver banding used on Captain America's costumes. The web shooters were also made more external, wrapping around the entire wrist of the suit. This suit would later be made practically for Spider-Man's first outing in the MCU, Spider-Man Homecoming. The practical suit used for Spider-Man Homecoming looked very similar to the CG version used in Captain America Civil War, except for a few key differences. The colors of the suit were much brighter on the practical costume than the CG one. The textures and the web shooters were also redesigned. Overall, this suit design would be used again in Avengers Infinity War and Spider-Man Far From Home, except for scenes where Peter Parker would wear the Iron Spider armor. The Iron Spider armor was completely CG, with Tom Holland only wearing a mocap suit for filming. The suit itself has the same design language as Tony Stark's nanotech suits, and features extendable spider legs and light-up eyes. The suit is based on the Iron Spider suit from the comics during the Civil War storyline. We wouldn't get a new version of the costume for Tom Holland's Spider-Man until his next film, Spider-Man Far From Home, where he creates his own red and black version of the suit. The red and black suit has the same design language as the Homecoming suit, with the black bands, moving eye lenses, and red texture all remaining pretty much the same. The black sections of the suit, however, have a different texture, and the web shooters were now lower profile. The back emblem of the costume had also been made white to contrast with the black portions of the suit, and the gloves were very reminiscent of the gloves worn by Miles Morales in the comics. The black and red suit would undergo a minor change in Spider-Man No Way Home, where the front of the belt would be reshaped to be closer to the comics. Otherwise, the suit would remain identical until we would be introduced to the integrated suit midway through the film. The main purpose of the integrated suit was so that the director, John Watts, could differentiate Tom's Spider-Man in action scenes with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. The suit was just a CG overlay over the black and red suit and featured a golden spider emblem and other small design changes. Andrew Garfield's suit would remain the same as his appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but Tobey Maguire would get a new practical suit as his previous suits worn in his films had been deteriorating at that point. Tobey's new costume would follow the same design language as his previous suits, with the webbing now being screen printed in high-density ink rather than foam latex that would have to be glued onto the suit by hand. Tobey's eye lenses would also become white just like the 2002 film, and his webbing design was also slightly changed. At the end of No Way Home, we see Tom's Peter Parker craft a new red and blue costume, more similar to the suit from the comics. We don't actually know much about this costume at the moment, but we do know that most, if not all, of the suit was done in CGI. I hope you guys enjoyed this overly long video of me talking about Spider-Man costumes, and I hope that you learned something. Be sure to leave in the comment section down below what your favorite Spider-Man suit is, and as always, I will catch you all later.